Welcome to the 2021 BJCP members meeting. Somewhat unfortunately, although it has some benefits and that we probably can get a broader reach online, we're still online for the second year in a row. So hopefully next year we'll be back at the National Homebrewers Convention in Pittsburgh, and we'll be able to actually see you and share a beer in person. Or several. So today we have an agenda here. We'll have some introductions from the board members who might be here, just so you can meet them. I'll give some updates and I'll introduce myself as well. I'm Dennis Mitchell, serving as the current president of the BJCP. We'll talk a little bit about some staffing changes that have occurred over the past year, an update to the website, some updates from our directors. Unfortunately, it's hard to find a date in the fall where people were free, so I'll be covering updates for some of those directors, but we'll have some updates nonetheless. And then we asked for some member questions before this meeting, and we'll answer those throughout the presentation and catch up with some of the ones at the end that didn't quite fit into some other areas. So with that, I will get going. I always like to occasionally refer to our mission statement just as a reminder of why we're here and what we do. We're a nonprofit organization. We encourage knowledge, understanding, and appreciation of the world's diverse beer, mead, and cider styles. We promote, recognize, and advance beer, mead, cider tasting, evaluation, and communication skills. And we develop standardized tools, methods, processes for the structured evaluation, ranking, and feedback of beer, meads, and ciders. So hopefully that sounds familiar and you're in the right meeting today. One thing I did want to point out is the growth that we've had over the last few decades, but particularly the last 8 or so years. Going back to 1994, in really the first decade of the program, it had grown to just over 1,000 judges. There was quite a bit of growth between 94 and 2008. The program more than doubled to just over 2,500 judges. Again, between 2008 and 2013, there was a 74% increase to get us to 4,400 judges. And then over the past 8 years, from 2013 to as of the last database update this past month, we have 7,831 active judges in the world, which is another 75% increase since the last time we looked at this in 2013. So compared to almost 30 years ago in 1994, our judge ranks have grown by over 6 times. Currently, we have a nice, cool number, 888 active national or higher ranked judges of the 7,800 total judges, which is about 11%. And of those, we have 763 national judges and 125 judges who are ranked master or grandmaster. So we've had a lot of growth over the course of the organization, and really have tried to respond to a lot of the growth and struggled somewhat over the past decade or so as things really exploded. So that's just some context for where we're at and how broad our organization is. This screen shows your current 2021-22 BJCP board. As I mentioned, I am serving as the president this year after a long stint with Gordon Strong as president for the past 15 years, and we'll talk about that a little later. Sandy Cockerham is our vice president from the Midwest region in Indianapolis. I think she is actually proctoring an exam and not on the call this morning. Let me look at the list. Yeah, I don't see her. Brian Cooper is serving as our treasurer from the West region in California. Brian, you're on. You want to say
I'm here.
Hello.
Yep. Hello.
Omar Basha is serving as our Europe, Middle East, Africa region representative, and he is in Israel. I don't think I see him. Some of the time zones, it's really hard to have a meeting time where everybody in the world can attend at the same time, where it's not horrible hours for everybody. Christopher Wong is our representative from China. He's from the Asia Pacific region. Diego Seti is our representative from the Latin American region. Diego is on the call. I want to say a quick hello so people can see you. Maybe not. All right, move. Oh, you're there. Move on to Fred Molnar. He's our new representative from the Mid-Atlantic region from Pennsylvania. Brian Jose is our representative in the North region from Wisconsin. Andrew Liberto is our representative from the Northeast region from New York. He is on the call as well. If you want to say a quick hello.
Hey everybody. Thanks, Dennis.
And Sal Mortiaro II is our South representative from Louisiana. So this is our board. 2 years ago now, I think, we expanded from 7 to 10 representatives to bring on 3 new international regions from Latin America, Asia Pacific, and Europe, Middle East, Africa, in recognition of our pretty broad international expansion over the last decade, especially. So we'll move on. Just gonna briefly talk about our directorate. So the board meets somewhat regularly and communicates via email to talk about the direction of the organization and any issues that might arise. But the real work of the organization happens in our directorates, and I'll just talk about the ones we have and give some context for that. Again, emphasize this is an all volunteer organization. So we have a lot of people putting in a lot of volunteer hours and dedicating a lot of their personal time to help the BJCP continue. So it really should be applauded, and we're very thankful for all the volunteer hours that are put in to help us be successful. Our communications directorate, we have 2 staff members there. David Hausman has been the longtime competition director, and then recently he brought on Michael Burry as an assistant director. So if you have any competition related questions, Dave or Michael are really good contacts for that. Dave has a wealth of history and knowledge to share. On the communications directorate side, I'm still serving in dual roles. So I'm still serving as the communications director, but I am starting to recruit for potential replacement. Andrew serves as an assistant communications director, and then Toby Guidry is another assistant as well. On the education and training directorate, Kristen England, Dr. Kristen England is the education director, with Julie and Randy as assistants. Kristen was our original founding education director back in the day, took some time off, had been involved, and then when Bruce Berger moved recently to IT, Kristen was appointed as education director again. This is our largest directorate, the exam directorate, which makes sense given that this is one of the primary purposes of the organization. So we have a lot of work to do in the area with grading and managing the exam program. Sarah Bridegroom has served as our managing exam director since 2018 after Steve Piotr retired. And then it was recently announced a couple days ago that Don Blake was appointed the new managing exam director, as Sarah has stepped down from that role. So we did post that. If you know Sarah or see Sarah in person or digitally, definitely thank her for her several years of really dedicated service in that role. And we'll hear from Don a little later when we have an update from the exam directorate. The exam work is often a lot of thankless hours put into grading and managing, and people constantly going, "Where's my exam? I took it several months ago." So definitely thank your exam staff and all the work that goes into that. And then finally, we have a finance directorate of one. Al Boyce used to be a treasurer when he was on the board. And then we created the finance director position so he could continue assisting the organization in finance matters. And he's a wealth of institutional knowledge and does a bang up job as our finance director. And then on the IT side, Bruce Berger is now our IT director. He replaced Gordon this past year. And then James Golovich is our assistant IT director, who does a ton of work on the back end to make sure that our systems are up and running. So it's just an overview of the kind of breadth of the organization and all the volunteer hours that go into making this ship run. And we'll hear from some of these folks later on, and then I'll stand in for some as well. I would like to take a few moments here to recognize the vast amount of work that Gordon Strong has put into the BJCP over the past 2 decades. After this year, when he stepped down from the president role and the IT director role, the board had a discussion and decided to create a title and status for him of president emeritus, especially in the public world. President Emeritus is a status that is often granted by organizations to recognize outstanding and distinguished service by an outgoing president that has served really long periods of time and has just had an extraordinary impact on the organization. And given all that Gordon has done over the past years, we felt that was an easy call to make. So in this role, Gordon did serve as 15 years as BJCP president, really steered the ship and helped the organization recover from some troubling times back when he was starting on the board. We had some issues with some fraud of former board members that are fortunately long gone, and the organization is in a much more stable place now. He's also served as IT director and the principal author of the style guidelines, and he's currently the highest ranking judge in the organization with the rank of Grand Master 14. He's a prolific judge, proctor, educator, and author, and is really, really deserving of this distinction. In this role, he will basically be an advisor to the BJCP board moving forward, really helping us to understand the institutional history and context as we move forward and make some modernizations and improvements. And will continue to chair the Style Guidelines Committee and be the principal author of that. So if you see Gordon, definitely buy him a drink. Sometimes he's not drinking beer. He might be drinking a Negroni or something else, but definitely thank him for his service and his continued service. He's an incredible asset for the organization. I don't think I saw him on the call. So very briefly, he has been working on a minor revision to the 2015 beer style guidelines and is hoping to have that wrapped up very soon. So once we have more information, we will release that. These are a lot of typo edits and minor edits to catch errors that were in the last guidelines, and look at some feedback that we got after we've seen them used for 5 years to make some small adjustments to help clarify some common issues that judges have raised. So I'm excited to get the minor update out, and we'll have that maybe by the end of the year, but no promises. Some updates that I have, we have had some staffing changes, and I've talked about some of those. Obviously, the biggest one is Gordon no longer serving as president or IT director. And just a note on that, our BJCP officers, the president, the vice president, and the treasurer are all elected members of the board. So if you like what somebody is doing in a role, please vote. When the elections happen, we tend to have pretty low turnout for our elections. and the president is not a separate position that's appointed. If they're not reelected, then they can no longer be president. And that was the scenario we had that we faced this year. We're also, as I mentioned, we have a new managing exam director, we have a new IT director, and these transition efforts take some time to especially in those two very large positions for the organization. So as our new directors, take over, some patience is always good as they kind of learn the role, learn the systems, and decide where they're going to steer the ship. So everything you can do to support them is good. We have gotten a lot of questions, no matter how much we post and communicate about judge active and inactive status during the pandemic. There was a post a month or two ago that we made that really reiterated that since the pandemic began, and we announced that we're not currently enforcing judge activity requirements. So nobody has to worry about becoming marked as an inactive judge currently. We plan to not even resume looking at judge activity until 2023. And when we decide to start doing that, we will give members plenty of notice so that they can start judging again and earning points to retain their active status. And then one other thing that we see occasionally is judges are worried that if they don't judge, they're going to lose their rank or something like that. We don't downgrade people. So once you get a rank, you don't have to worry about losing it. The inactivity, if you're ever marked inactive, all that means is that you drop off the contact lists that are given to organizations and that you can't participate in BJCP elections. You basically, you're inactive, so you can't vote. But you still have your rank, and becoming active again is as easy as judging in a competition, earning some kind of points, whether it's organizer or steward points, or even updating your online account with a new email address or a new address. We basically just want to know that you're still there, you're still alive, you're still interested in the program and participating. So this really isn't a big thing. Some people make it out to be, but it's not. But just know that for now, you do not have to worry about this requirement. We'll not be looking at active status at least until 2023. So, and this really recognizes that the pandemic is ongoing. There's a lot of unknowns, and we don't want to keep setting a date and pushing it back. So we went with a date pretty far in the future. So related to that is the issue of online exams, since they do have a 1-year deadline from when you pass an online exam to when you can take the judging exam for beer, mead, or cider. They're all the same format exam now. This is still done on a case-by-case basis. So if you have somebody or you yourself are wondering, hey, I took this and then my exam got pushed back because of COVID. Now it's over a year, can I still use that online exam? The protocol currently is to ask your exam administrator, so the person putting on the exam, to contact the exam director and ask for that extension. They're still evaluating that on a case-by-case basis. So there's no blanket exemptions from that now. We still have an interest in making sure that people have current knowledge when they're taking the judging exams. And then for me, and I think most of the board and our new directors, over the next year, we really have a focus on continuity, given that there are so many changes over the past year, looking at keeping the organization stable and starting to finish some long-term projects that have been in the works for a while and get those over the finish line so we can move forward. I did want to point out that earlier this year, the board did adopt ethical standards for BJCP members. You can see the link there. The bylaws do allow for the creation of standards of conduct for members, and this is a step to create those. So we do view these as a requirement for membership. I'm not going to go over all of these. You can read these and refer to the policy online. None of these are really new. These are all things that have existed in things like the Judge Procedures Manual and whatever, and we're really just codifying these standards in a way that there's one place for members to view them. there's some big things in that all members have a right to equal access to BJCP services. There's some common sense things like avoiding conflict of interest, not profiting from judging or BJCP positions. We've seen some scenarios where people are trying to do that. So we really wanted to take some steps to codify that, that's not okay. And there's a difference between, going to a competition that might pay for a small stipend for some housing if you're traveling to it, versus trying to use your rank to make a lot of money in a business sense. So read those. If you have any questions about the ethical standards, we'll probably be reminding membership in a future newsletter as well. Reach out to your regional representative and you can discuss those. We're also looking for some help in certain areas. So there's a forum on this webpage, bit.ly/BJCP volunteer takes you to the forum. We're looking for some potential help in areas of communication, social media, website management on WordPress, finance and accounting, legal. If there's any members that are lawyers that might be able to help out on the trademark and intellectual property side, we'd be interested in knowing that. Education and training, and then if anybody's interested in mailing some things like mailing pins to members, that's kind of a thankless job, but it's a need sometimes for us that we could use some additional help on. If you're interested in helping, or know somebody that might be a good fit, have them fill out this form. One note is that just because you fill it out doesn't mean we're gonna contact you, and we can't unfortunately respond to everybody. Part of the struggle with the volunteer organization is we have all the duties that we have to do, and then managing other volunteers is an extra load of work. So we'll try to plug people in where we can, and creating kind of a directory of potential future help as we need it, as volunteers go in and out, because we all know how that goes. We have different times in our lives where we can spend more time doing things like this than others. We often see things like, so-and-so had a kid, so they're out, and that happens. So if you're interested or know anybody who is, point that to that forum, and we'll try to plug some people in. All right, so website update. It is done mostly. The long journey of transitioning to our new website platform is finally converted over. So as of yesterday, all www.bjcp.org web pages will point to the new site, and the new site is fully functional and operational. There's a few database issues that we'll talk about a little later, that some things will still point to the old site, but that is working pretty seamlessly. So I'm going to point out a few things of the website based on some feedback that we've gotten. And know that we do have a team working on this now, actively trying to improve content and usability of the site. So as I said, www.bjcp.org is now fully functional, and the old, if you remember the old brown website, is now archived. So one thing, and this is a picture of the homepage of the site, that we added in the top right corner, a button to very easily get you to the judge login. This is one feedback item that we got, that it was hard to find the login. So now it is very hard to miss the login. So that's one area. And then some of the feedback we got is it's hard to find things. So the one thing we did, we looked at the old website. The old website, for things like style guidelines and exams and competitions, it basically had one giant page that dumped everything into, which isn't super good practice in web design now. But we made some attempts to kind of do that a little bit with the new website. So if you click on the style guidelines link in the menu, you get a page that you can actually download the PDF or the doc of the style guidelines. They're still available online, but we've had a lot of feedback that people still want the PDF to download and read on their iPad or print out or whatever they want to do with that. We do have a partnership with a company called the Book Patch. So I think it's like $15 plus shipping. You can get the whole guidelines, beer, mead, cider, and the ingredient references printed out, spiral bound, and mailed to you. So that's an option too, or you can take the PDF and go to your copy shop of choice as well. And again, that's use, acceptable use as a member for your own purposes as a judge, for educational training. If you have questions about how to use it outside of that, you can contact the communications director. So pointing out some other things. So the exam side, when you click that, there's now a page that really tries to focus on the process for beer, mead, and cider, becoming a beer, mead, or cider judge, trying to really easily distill the process down into 3 bullet points. So, you have to study for the exam you want to take, you have to pass the online entrance exam, you have to pass the judging exam, and a little bit more information on that. This page also puts in some exam admin resources, exam grader resources, and again, just trying to put things in links on one page for people to more easily find. Same thing for competition. So the competition page, if you're registering, gives you the process to register a competition. There's links for competition reporting. There's links for the competition documents like score sheets and flight summary sheets and all of that, list of software that are supported. So we're trying to respond to feedback and make the website more usable for people. We'll probably be putting a feedback form for both kind of errors, bugs, and recommendations as well. So look out for that. So hopefully we're in a better spot with the website at this point, moving forward, and the long journey to get where we are is at least over somewhat, but the work continues. As I mentioned, we have a small team working on evaluating the content, design, and interface of the website, looking at some more modern approaches and standards for that. The IT directorate, Bruce and James, still working on the infrastructure and database modernization, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then some pipeline items. We still want to improve the competition and exam calendars. The competition calendar does have a basic search feature on it, but there's some improvements that we'd like to make there. The exam calendar is still a static page on the legacy site, so we're working to get that migrated over. There is the goal of having a new members only forum. So the old forum is basically defunct, and a lot of our modern kind of communication has been happening on the Facebook group. But we would like to have a members only spot on our website that is limited to members, and we can have that conversation with members. We have a couple of people working on updating the FAQs. Some of the FAQs on the website are outdated, so we're looking at improving those and organizing those in a more useful way. And then we're looking at mobile friendly design. The current website works okay on mobile, but it could probably be a little better. So those are some things in the pipeline, and we will keep plugging away at the website. And related to that, Bruce is unable to be here today. He did post an update that went out in the last newsletter, so a lot of this is just rehashing that. He spent a lot of the summer as he took over as IT director, working with Gordon on the continuity of the database and the IT infrastructure to make sure that things like our database updates get uploaded to the website so judges get their points and exam grades go out and things like that. We do have a pretty antiquated database system that Bruce is working on a plan to modernize and to go out for a request for proposals from vendors to get proposals on what that might cost us to implement a new database system that meets our needs in a modern way. There's just an immense amount of manual work, processing and data entry that goes into the current database. And a lot of it, unfortunately, it's hard to share because the database lives on a single computer. So Bruce or whoever is in charge of the database, which it was Gordon, now is Bruce, they're pretty much the only ones that can do that since the database is local and then gets updated to the web periodically. So we're working to modernize that, and Bruce said he is hoping to have a roadmap kind of that project out to membership by the end of the year. With that, there's a lot of hope to automate a lot of our processes that will hopefully reduce things like exam wait time as more processes are automated. Our volunteers are not spending time with data entry. They're not spending time with things that are just eating up time that can be automated. So we're hoping to make a lot of improvements there within the next year or two that will really be impactful to the organization. I think this is my last update before I turn it over to some of the other directors that are here. On the communication side, we have Andrew that continues to manage the BJCP Bulletin, which is our newsletter that we try to get out about quarterly. Sometimes we hit that, sometimes we don't. We are investigating, we are seeing that sometimes the newsletter is getting caught by spam filters, but it's even getting caught by organizational settings from certain email providers where it's not even hitting inboxes. It's just going, not even hitting spam. It's just getting stopped before it gets there. So we're investigating some of that. But if you can, go into your spam settings and try to whitelist at bjcp.org so that the emails from us hopefully get to you. We do have pretty good open rates on the newsletters that vary between like 30 and 40%. So a lot of members are getting them, but we definitely have noted issues where sometimes we're having issues with spam filters. And I was an example of that because the last newsletter came out and I didn't get it. It's not in my spam folder, so it got lost somewhere coming to me. We have Toby that he continues to, the past couple of years, he served as the election committee chair to help run our elections. And he also is running our name badge ordering program. Several years ago, we ran into some issues with the old name badge vendor that we had, and finally last year found a better one. So that's been up and running for a year, maybe two now. And that's been much more stable and going well. So we haven't had as many issues. International shipping is still really hit or miss. And that I think is just a byproduct of the pandemic and just, some destinations are harder to ship reliably to. So we try to reship if we can, but, after 2 or 3 attempts, sometimes it's obviously not going to happen. We typically submit the badge orders every 1 to 3 months. We kind of monitor as they come in, and once we hit a critical mass, we send over an order. So sometimes it might take a few months to get to you, but it's definitely going better than it did over the past few years. We have a merchandise store where you can order BJCP merchandise like a work shirt or a polo or a t-shirt or a hat or whatever suits your needs. And this is working well for US orders, but we do need to revisit merchandise option for international orders since the current vendor we're using is having some issues with their website and international visits. So that's something that we'll continue to work on. And as far as the communications directorate, we would like to be a little more active than we are online and at least have a minimal presence on some of the social media platforms. But we do need some help with that. So that's part of the call for help that we put out before. We're really looking for people who do this as a living that can dedicate some time. We don't necessarily want people that are like, I have my own blog that I post twice a year, or I have a Twitter account so I can manage your Twitter. We're really looking for professionals in the area. So if that's you, or if that's somebody that kind of point them to contact us, and we can have that conversation about where they might fit in. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Don Blake. He is our new managing exam director as of yesterday. And he has some updates to talk about, and then we'll continue going. Then Don, just let me know when you want me to click and advance the slides for you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining here this morning. And so first off, with the as far as my updates, a couple things we already talked about, some HR within the exam directorate. First off, I would like to send a big shout out and thank you to Sarah Bridegroom for the years that she has been working in the MED role, and I'll be taking it on with a lot of her guidance, and I appreciate her a ton, and I'd appreciate everybody giving her a big pat on the back and a round of applause for all the work that she has done. Also in the HR area of the exam directorate, Sandy Cockerham is stepping down as the assistant exam director, and we don't have a replacement just yet. We're trying to figure out how we're going to do it. As Dennis had mentioned, we have some things like mailing pins and badges and such that it's we're looking at alternate ways of taking on that role, as well as the assistant exam director has a lot to do with making sure that the database gets updated properly. And we're going to be working with IT to hopefully modernize that. And it might even eliminate that role altogether, but right now it won't. As a result of some of the changes, we're going to be looking to backfill at least one ED slot, probably from the associate exam director slot. So we're going to have a little bit of shuffling chairs for a little while, but we're most certainly going to be adding another associate director as we backfill into an exam director slot. So if you're a grader and you're interested, please let me know. And then also, we're always looking for more graders. If you're national above, please consider donating some of your time and abilities to grade. And we have a bunch of information on the website for that. So into some of the next things, go ahead and hit that next slide, Dennis. As far as our stats are concerned right now, I was going through the database or our tracking sheet, and some of the things that right now we have about 10%, about 58 out of the 583 from last year that are still open. Those are international, and some of those are just going to be closed here in the next database update. And we're running about 50% closure on the exams that have been given in 2021. But as you can see in the year by year, the exams dropped off by about half in 2020 because of the pandemic. And in 2021, we still have a pretty lean amount. So a lot of the exams in 2020 got either canceled or postponed, and the postponement in some cases is causing some of our backlog. But then in 2021, I think people were just not scheduling as many exams. So go ahead and hit the next one there. So this is just a quick snippet. You could see in 2020, almost half of the exams got canceled, and more than half of those were done because of COVID. And in 2021, we've already canceled 32 sites out of the however many we have out there. So this is still something that's going on, and some of the things that we're dealing with as far as the pandemic is concerned, as we had already mentioned, the online exam expiration, we're temporarily waiving that, but that is going to be done on a case-by-case basis. So please contact your local exam administrator, who then needs to contact the exam director assigned to the set, who can then make that call based on the situation at hand. So it's not just an automatic, but we are being super lenient about it. And then also with the pandemic impacts, what we're doing is if somebody needs to postpone an exam, which has happened quite regularly over the last year, we're postponing it to another month. And if that month is already full, well, then we're just going to have a whole lot of work to do in that month, which then we have a little bit of an additional delay in the turnaround for that exam, just due to the resources that we have to throw at grading exam sets. So your patience is most certainly appreciated as we get through this. Looks like we're starting to hopefully see things get a little bit better. Next sort of things, I was calling this foreign or non-US, as a lot of folks are saying. We do have a fairly US centric view of the world, but that's just based on how we were created and where we started from. But that is not where we are now. And as you can see, those red bars are the US exams, and the blue bars are the foreign exams. And I've also included Canada and England and Australia in those. It doesn't necessarily mean that those are the ones that take much longer because they're foreign. If they have to be translated into, from Spanish or French or Chinese, that takes a lot of time, and a lot of other folks from either within or outside the exam directorate. And things take time, and especially now with the pandemic, getting a lot of people's time to go through these things becomes difficult. But what we're doing is because we can see that we have a pretty big foreign interest, we're doing a couple of things. We're going to be reviewing our existing translated materials so that we know that we have a really good set of guidelines for people to go through. We're also going to be looking at what additional languages are appropriate for these materials to be translated into. And what we're going to be doing is just looking at the data, see what sort of demand there is from Spanish, French, whatever. We have, we're looking at the online exam and considering doing some translation of that into probably the lowest hanging fruit translation, just so that we can offer that exam into a native translation for whatever. That takes a bit of time, just because we have to vet the translation, make sure that it's appropriate for our particular world here. And then the other thing that I think is going to be a shorter term impact, and I think it's going to have a bigger impact, is I'm going to start working more proactively with key people in certain regions in, say, Europe or South America, et cetera, who are already scheduling exams, but also work with them to, and the regional reps, to help facilitate getting the exams done and have them be done right. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we're missing proctors, or we don't have enough proctors in these particular areas. So some of the things that we'll try to do is proactively set up written exams in certain areas where we know that there are people who qualify. And so we can get more people who can be qualified proctors, take the written exam, get score 80 above, become national or master. Let's see. And we're going to be we're going to proactively try to get more international staff in the exam directorate to help with this as well. Let's see, a couple of other things that we got going on. The exam directorate, we had a meeting last week, and a couple of things we looked at. A quick review of the exam itself, the program. We had some major changes about, or it was around 2017, 18, and we all feel pretty comfortable with the exam as it stands right now. It's doing its job. And so there's no major changes planned for that. As I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the translation of the existing exam materials so that they can be available in other languages. We've always been working on some of our internal systems. We have a lot of Excel spreadsheets and other scripts and things like that help us get our job done a little bit more effectively, so we can spend more time analyzing an exam as opposed to doing busy work and putting an exam code on a PDF so that you can have an exam score sheet. So we've been developing that over the last several years, and we continue to do that, but we'll be working with IT to make sure that that all moves forward. And then as far as some suggestions are concerned, there's been some chatter that's out there about people who want to make some changes. We're certainly interested in hearing what you have to say. If you think that there's a problem, I definitely want to understand what you think it is. And then also what you think would be a way to go about fixing it, and what your fix is going to do to fix that problem. And then how willing are you to help out and fix in administering or implementing said activities so that we can actually keep things moving. As Dennis mentioned, we're a bunch of volunteers and time is pretty precious. So, but certainly want to keep the exam directorate moving and improving on a continuous basis. And so questions, topics that were submitted, grading turnaround time update. As mentioned, we have a big impact due to COVID, and a lot of these months get wind up, instead of having 12 exam sites, we wind up having 20 exams to have to go manage. So we're going to be eventually just unraveling that. Already mentioned the international support, and then the remote and online exams. I'm not really sure what that means. The online exam is.
I'll jump in. The question was more related to, I think, taking the written exam in an online or remote format. So I know it's been talked about for a while. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we did touch on that in our exam directorate meeting last week, and it's something that is certainly possible. We have some certain issues with trying to administer it. The written exam, as hopefully everybody knows, you could schedule it. you could be, if you're just national or above, you could schedule a written exam. You have to be a grader to schedule the quarterly written, which eliminates the need for your exam site to have at least 6 examinees. You can have as few as one person for the quarterly written, but you do have to be a grader in order for that to happen. There are some certain issues that we've brought up with having say an online written exam or using a laptop to do it, that frankly, we don't have a really good way around right now. So that's something that we'll consider, but as it stands, we're not going to be moving towards that, as we have other more important things to go solve as far as IT is concerned within the program.
All right. Well, thank you, Don, for those updates and all the work that's going in. There's a lot of work to do on the exam side. So thank you for those efforts. I see Sandy joined us. Hi, Sandy. Are you done proctoring today?
Yep. All done proctoring down here in Atlanta.
Thank you for doing that. Sandy's like our master traveling board member, peer judge, and proctor extraordinaire. So, all right, moving on. I don't think Kristen is here yet. So I'm going to skip over, and he was going to try to join on the hour. So he had kid soccer stuff to do. So I'm going to come back to this if he does join. Competition updates. These again is rehashing what was recently put out in the last newsletter from Dave and Michael. Just like the exams, we're seeing some activity pick up on competitions, but we're definitely far from pre-pandemic levels. And then I think, as with many people in the world, there was some hope as the vaccine started to roll out in the spring and in the summer. And then as the Delta variant kind of reared its head, we started to see more cancellation and postponements again as people took caution with the current situation. One thing the competition directorate is recommending is to consider a vaccine requirement for in-person judging. We've had at least one judge pass from COVID. I don't think it was related to judging in a competition, but definitely consider everything you can do to keep it safe and to keep the environment safe for everybody involved in the competition. If you have any questions about competitions, whether it's registering it, whether it's how things are, tips on how they should be run and things like that, reach out to Dave or Michael, and they will steer you. One of the questions we got from a member was about considering changes to the score sheet or competition rules for international competitions. So Dave wanted me to kind of go over these few points. He wasn't really aware of any specific environmental or other challenges or ingredient differences that would really require modification of the BJCP score sheet. We've had kind of a standard written score sheet for quite a long time that's been very successful in competition use. It's been translated into multiple languages, and it's pretty open-ended, so it's pretty flexible. But that being said, we don't require the use of the BJCP score sheets in BJCP sanctioned competition as long as you use something to provide feedback to entrants and also follow the rules of blind judging and everything else. So we weren't quite sure on this one, but if this person will follow up and see if they have any other questions. And if you have any other questions related to that, please contact the competition directorate. All right, so at this point, there are some other questions that were submitted that didn't really fit neatly into some of the director updates that I'm going to talk a little bit about. And then I'll circle back to see if Chris joins. And if not, I'll briefly provide an update on the education. No, I do see Chris actually. He's in his car. I'm going to back up then and let you talk a little bit. And Dr. Chris England. Maybe. Are you still calling in? Yeah, can't hear you.
Oh, how's that? We good now?
Yep, there you go.
Oh, apologize. We're just out of a soccer match, going to another soccer match. So a little brief overview about what we're done, where we're going, and when some questions. We just kind of wrapped up this mead training thing called Better Judge of Mead. Josh Holbrook set the whole thing up, and a whole bunch of us that have a little bit of interest and knowledge about mead gave a bunch of videos and stuff. We're going to end up putting a link to it on the education part at some point, so people can watch along. Chip from Chop and Brew set it all up and did it, and there's a lot of really good information. It's you know, your mileage may vary about what you consider good information when it comes to that mead stuff, but there's a lot of really good people talking about some good mead stuff and some taste alongs and some good meads you guys can have along with it. Bruce had finished up, or we were just finishing up the cider training and study program. We're pretty much done with that. We just got to get it all finalized and then get it all hosted. That's pretty much done. We're going to be coming out with this sour and funky beer training program. Basically, it's kind of along the same lines of the mead and cider training, but not so in depth because it's not really necessary. I mean, beer is beer. It's just a little different because of all the funky terminology and the weird terminology and all the off flavors and all other beers that are on flavors, and then the off flavors in the off flavored beer, I guess you'd have it. We're a good way done with that. We're trying to build these sensory training programs. So we have one for malts. We're doing another one with hops about how to smell and taste hops without them having to be in beer. I'm going to be working with Barth Haas, I believe, and getting us a discount on their hop sensory training. They have these little kits, just like the kind of off flavored kits, but they're for on flavors for different hops and aroma hops. They're actually really, really good. I was just judging at the GABF, and I talked to one of their big representatives there, super good guy, and then we're going to try to get a discount for everybody. It'll still be done through them, but we're going to see about getting people a discount. We've got an alternative grain compendium coming out. One of the people that started helping us last year, she's moving along consistently with it, like all the other grains that you don't think about in brewing that people are using, and it's not just for gluten-free. I mean, you're talking Kernza, you're talking Spelt, you're talking all these different ones. You know what the grains are, what how you use them, the flavors that they give and such, because most people don't really, they've heard of them, but they haven't really used them in beer. What else? I think, so there was a question about judge training that Dennis sent me. It's saying, you know, does the BJCP do judge training? I mean, it was such a general question that I'm guessing it's from somebody that wasn't in the BJCP. The education directorate gives their okay for people. Not the okay. They verify that you're teaching the correct things when you're doing a BJCP class, whether it be 4 classes or 15 classes. Basically, you just email me and then I go over the stuff. The vast majority of the time, people have already set these up. In this next year, we're going to be bringing more people on board, and the idea is to get more of these kind of in a can, just to have people click on a link and use them. The issue before was our ability to host them, which is on a lot of issues of ability that we've had for the education stuff in the past. But we have an education portal that Bruce had set up that works really well for us. And we're going to start putting those along. So when the people ask us, say, hey, you know, I'm using this person's slide deck to teach these things, is that okay? And, you know, basically to get the points, you just run it past me, verify it, I look over stuff. And if it's already been done before, it makes things much easier for you and makes it much for us. And there was another question about the vocabulary project. We started that back when I started the education program, and we've finished it 3 times now. We haven't been able to host it 3 times now, and we've changed the format 3 times. It is so exceedingly out of date that it's going to have to be completely redone again. And I don't know if we want to have the time or energy to do it, because you're basically talking, it's a beer and brewing glossary, of which there are so many out there now that I don't know if we want to be the host to it, because Siebel has one. Harriet Watt has one. I mean, you have all these large places that have them. I think the most important stuff for us is for us to link to them to point members, rather than actually having to just copy and paste is the wrong word, but basically host our own. I don't know if it's worth it. My staff and I are going to be talking about it in the next few weeks about if we want to do that. We're still looking for more help. We put the ping out when the email came out, or the summary came out in the last quarter about doing getting more people on board. I've gotten 3 or 4 emails from people. Most of them don't have a whole lot of experience, and that's absolutely fine. We need people with a lot of experience and a little experience. There's a ton of work always to be done. And if you want to, and even if you're brand new to the BJCP, please send me an email, Kristen, Kristen @ BJCP.org, and we'll get you helping. I mean, we're going to ask you for references and stuff. So we make sure that you play well with others and you don't have elbows that you're pissing everybody else off with. But I mean, other than that, that sounds, I know I talk quick, and that was a whole bunch of stuff we just covered right there. But anything else, Dennis? Am I missing something?
No, I think that was it. And then, this is recorded. So if that went too fast, you can replay it, like slow it down by 3 times so that Chris talks at a normal speed for you. So yeah, no, I think that hit the points, that hit the questions that were submitted. I think my takeaway, there's a lot of good things that we're working on, and there's a lot of good things that we're hoping to get out in the next year or two on the training side. To help people with training, especially having it at the local levels. We've always been an organization that's really relied on local judges to conduct their trainings and to spread and mentor other BJCP judges and future judges. So that's kind of where our education directorate plugs in for that.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Cheers,
enjoy
man.
the rest. Enjoy the rest of the soccer matches.
Yes, it's going to be amazing all day. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
All right. All right. Moving on to the other questions that were submitted. So there was a question about any inclusion, equity, and justice efforts that BJCP has made. In my last update in the last newsletter, I did point out that during last year, Gordon had made a post on the website. The post titled "All Are Welcome in the BJCP." And it really outlines kind of our stance on inclusivity and diversity and judging and in the homebrew world. Acknowledging that we're often pulling our membership from a oftentimes less diverse craft beer community that also has issues sometimes with equity and inclusion. And that if there are issues, we really are asking judges to be focused on how we're creating a inclusive environment for members and for all judges. We want this to be open. If we're at a time where for this hobby in general to continue, we have to figure out how to keep the new generations interested and to keep more people interested. And we do that by welcoming people and making sure that we're being inclusive. If you have any issues that you can't resolve locally, please reach out to your regional representative, and we'll have those conversations as we need to. But our stance is that we should be as inclusive as possible. And the other point is that as an organization, we don't collect a lot of demographic information about our members. And part of that is we don't want that in our database, and we don't want that to play any kind of role in things we do like grading exams. So we don't collect it, and we don't view our members in that way. So if you have any other questions related to that, feel free to follow up with me or your regional rep. Again, we had several questions submitted about active status and losing rank to COVID. I talked about that earlier. That's paused. You won't lose rank. Please disseminate that to fellow judges who might have those questions. And again, if they have issues with that, have them contact their regional rep to talk about it. Occasionally we do get questions, and some were submitted about, hey, I got Cicerone certification, or I got my Mead certification or Mead judge endorsement. Can that help increase my rank? And the answer is no. We don't offer any reciprocal type of judge certification for other organizations like the Cicerone. We don't offer points for that. And the Mead judge and the cider judge endorsement, if you're an existing beer judge, it's an endorsement. So what that gets you is to be able to say you're also a Mead judge or a cider judge. It does not help you advance from like certified to national. So those are separate things. So the answer to that is no, we don't currently do that. We did have some questions kind of about how to earn points with so little judging activity available. I think that's a very valid question, and it's tough right now for all of us. Try to keep an eye out for any competitions that are happening that you might feel safe participating in. There's been more virtual competitions, even as some people are feeling safe to return to in person. I'm still seeing some that tried a virtual competition last year and it actually went pretty well. So they're doing it again, or they're having a mixed option. They're doing some judged virtually and some judged in person. So outside of that, look for some, there's been some educational opportunities to at least get non-judging points. Chris mentioned the Mead video series that was recently produced, and that had a component to be able to judge a mead along with them, submit your score sheet or notes, and get education points for that. So that's something that'll keep your record active, and at least you're getting non-judging points to help that do help advance in rank. Anytime you get to that threshold where you need points to advance, half of the points have to be from judging, but half of the points can be from something else like stewarding, running a competition, or education. And then we did have one question, kind of, not really a question, I think a suggestion that we look into or do some research on long-term effects of COVID on sensory capability, since we know that it is affecting sense of smell and sense of taste, among other things. If anybody is interested or anybody sees any kind of resources or research on that, feel free to shoot them our way, and we might make like a kind of web page to look at that for judges who might be experiencing that issue, who've had COVID, unfortunately, or if any members are kind of doing their own research. I think I saw somebody posting on the Facebook page a few months ago that they're trying to do some research on this. It would be interesting to have a resource for judges. I don't know if we have anybody currently on staff that has the time to look at that, but that was another suggestion that was made. So at this point, that is all the material that I have for this meeting. I do want to again say that I really hope that next year we are doing this in person at the Homebrewers Convention in Pittsburgh in late June, I believe. But we have had some feedback that there are benefits to this online format. So we might consider how we record that, how we maybe also have an online meeting or session as well. So I think a lot of us are living in the hybrid world of in-person online for the next foreseeable future as well. So and if you want to contact us, one of the better resources on the website is this contact us page, bjcp.org/contact-us. And it has a listing of emails for all the regional representatives and all the directors. So if you're ever like, I don't know who to contact, that's a good page to go get the emails. And we also have a page that's lists all of our officers. So that's a good starting point. At this point, I do want to see if there's any other reps or staff on the call that have anything they'd like to discuss or offer out.
Dennis, if I could just, I just want to say for the Northeast, we've been, me, myself, and my team, we've been attending like online meetings with certain clubs in our area. So we're available for that. Those have been going great. If anybody wants any kind of training or input or any kind of questions or anything like that, please contact myself or one of my assistant reps. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else want to talk? On the rep
I'll
side?
just briefly say, as treasurer, we're still sitting pretty good financially, sitting on pretty good resources as far as our overall balance, and we're showing a net increase from January 1 through August now, and so and we have a pretty good balance in the bank, and we're not going to drain our resources because of the pandemic anytime soon. So just wanted to point that out, and also to thank our finance director, Al, who couldn't be here, but I'm working closely with him to make sure that we will target goals for next year that are going to be realistic. And if we have small decreases in activity that drain some resources, that we figure out how to compensate for that. But hopefully, I don't think we'll need to make any big adjustments coming up. We're doing pretty well there.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And agreed. We're thankful to have Al continuing to serve as our finance director there. So any other reps want to say anything?
Dennis, this is Ryan Thomas, exam director. I just wanted to add to one thing that Don Blake had said. If there is a need to have an accommodation for a disability on any of the exams, so if you have trouble writing, things like that, we do have an accommodation policy, disability policy that's on the website that will give you some information about how you can get, say, the use of a computer or possibly extra time. It's on a situation by situation basis. But that information is out there and that policy does exist. So talk to your admin and then have them talk to the exam director for your exam.
Thanks for reminding everybody that, Ryan. Any other rep or staff comments? All right. Since there aren't that many people on the call, I will ask if anybody has any other questions that we might be able to answer here in the next 20 or so minutes.
Dennis, I had a question. My name is Travis Pollen. I'm a certified judge from Texas. I wanted to see if there was a chance that the provisional styles would be officially added to the guidelines in a future revision.
Hi, Travis, and thanks for that question. I'll run that by Gordon and see what his thoughts are. I think he is constantly kind of evaluating how they're being used, and I don't know if any of them are going to be added in this next minor revision or not. We don't like to speak to those too much, but we do look at those and see kind of if they hit a critical mass of including or not. And just on the other side, we do look at current styles that are listed on, have they kind of faded and maybe they need to be moved to the historical section or something like that. One thing I will note is we do have some styles in the provisional that are listed as local styles, and those are often going to stay local because the point of those is to provide a resource for very specific use of certain styles that are most often used in a certain area of the world. So the current thinking on that I've heard is those will probably stay kind of as local styles, but they're there for anybody to use if they need to. So thanks for that question. Any other questions? I did note, Eric, your comment in the chat, and I'll take that idea about an official statement on vaccination back to the board and to the exam directorate to discuss. All right, going once, going twice. I think it's Saturday and people might have things like Oktoberfest related activities to go to some places and other stuff. I think Chris is already off to his kid's other soccer match. So anyway, I do want to say thank you for all of you for joining us and for all of you who might have watched this on the recording. Again, if you have any questions, use that contact us page and contact who might be appropriate. And certainly my inbox is open, so feel free to email me as well if you have any needs or questions. So with that, we'll wrap this up, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your weekend and rest of your 2021. Thank you all for doing what you do for the BJCP.
Thank you, Dennis, for running a good meeting, and everybody have a great day.